from here, I had tickets for Elton John at the O2. So I went to the O2, and my wife was coming from another place to meet me there. And I arrived at the O2 at North Greenwich Tube Station, went upstairs, and I thought it's a little bit quiet. It's a little bit odd. I thought it'd be busy. So I made my way into the actual O2, and it was really, really quiet. There was no Elton John stuff up. I'm thinking this is very odd. So I looked at my ticket on the AXS app, and on the ticket it said the 2nd of December, but Wednesday. So I'm thinking, hang on, there's a problem with the app, with the ticket. What is going on here? So then I went on to Google and I searched for Elton John, and I saw that it was the Wednesday, the 2nd of December, 2020. So I was exactly a year early for the concert. So at that point, I thought, oh my God, I need to phone Mrs. Doherty, that's my wife, not my mum, and tell her that, stop, that we're a year early. So I got through to her, and she just got on the train, so she had to go all the way into Waterloo. So then I thought, I'm really not happy about this. I'm feeling like a bit of a plonker. So I go to the information desk and I say, look, this is ridiculous. Look at this. You must have had loads of people, arriving here a year early. And the lady said, no, sir, you're the very first. So by way of introduction, you can clearly see I'm a bit of an idiot, but I hopefully can tell a story. And it's storytelling that's at the heart of what we do. And also I have paper in case we have a technology meltdown. So the show will go on regardless of any technical problems. Yeah, this is not my first rodeo. I've had all sorts of problems, throughout my life generally, but specifically when giving presentations. So I always have plan B and plan C. Plan C being Irish dancing. Now that I have an Irish passport because of, what's going on, I got an Irish passport just in case, so I could continue my product marketing career in Europe. So I am Senior Director Product Marketing at Workday. I'll explain a little bit about Workday in a minute, but I wanted to give you a bit of my background because I think it's interesting, isn't it? Certainly a lot of people I speak to, we all sort of fall into being product marketers, and that's exactly what's happened to me. I've always worked in B2B software, apart from my very first job, which was a graduate trainee in the IT department of Safeway stores, which doesn't exist anymore, but it's a big supermarket. So I was a MVS systems programmer. A show of hands, does anyone know what that is? No, yes, I'm really old now, aren't I? So I was like systems programming on old mainframes. That's where I started out. I've done training, support in software companies. I've done consulting, implementations. I've been a salesperson for 2 years, so a quota-carrying salesperson. I ran marketing in a company which was called Job Partners. That sounds quite grand. It was basically me. It was a startup. And frankly, we didn't do much marketing because I didn't really know what I was doing. But that company I was with for 11 years, from the very beginning of that company to when we sold it to the US market leader at the time, Taleo, which was then bought 9 months later by another big US technology company called Oracle. And then I've been at Workday for just under 5 years. Now, let me introduce Workday to you. I know from looking at the list of companies that you are from, that there are many companies here who are our customers. Can I just show a show of hands? Who knows and has heard of Workday? Oh, cool. Okay, great. So I can cut this bit down then. We are a enterprise cloud solution provider. We're best known for our HR solutions. That's where we started out. So, HCM, as it's called, human capital management. So that's about managing employee records, payroll, timesheets, talent management, performance management, compensation review, learning, recruiting. And I've probably forgotten something, but it's the broad management of employees, and we've been extremely successful there. Lesser known is that we also provide financial management solutions, and that's a massive growth area for us at the moment. That's fueling our growth at the moment. And then more recently, we've added on analytics capabilities because of all that financial and and people data provides insight to organizations that helps them make better business and strategic decisions. And then we've also acquired, I think about 18 months ago, a planning software company called Adaptive Insight, and by plugging in that missing piece of the puzzle, that allows us to help our customers what we call plan, execute, and analyze in more rapid cycles than ever before, which is all linked to the necessity for organizations to be agile, right? So in the old days, you'd have a planning cycle, maybe a year, maybe 18 months, maybe 24 months. You create the plan as a business, which is we're going to sell these products to these markets. You'd execute on that plan. And then maybe a year later, you'd analyze the results of that plan. And maybe if it's not working out so well, you'd change direction. You can't operate like that anymore. You would go out of business. And we see lots of examples of organizations doing just that. So you need to be able to do that cycle much faster. Now, Workday itself was founded in 2005. I think it was a very disruptive company, and we continue to be a very disruptive company as we were entering a very established market with very established, very strong, very large, very cash-rich incumbents who we still compete with to this day. So when I joined the company 5 years ago, it had about 3,000 employees. We're now at 12,000 employees. We cover in Europe about 14 countries. For instance, looking at Germany, our German office operations weren't there when I joined. Now we have over 160 employees there and lots of companies, customers, for instance. And we have over 3,000 customers worldwide. One of our key messages, and it's slightly disconcerting when you see other people's presentations and it's quite similar. You think you're unique, but you're not. We talk about the power of one. So in the enterprise software market, in the old days, everyone would be running different versions of software, customized. So you talk to another organization who are using, you think, the same software as you, and it's not. It's completely different. Whereas with Workday, everyone's using the same software, right? It's a single code line. It's like when you log into LinkedIn, you're using the same version as LinkedIn as me. It's the same with our software. It's just been configured differently to match organizations' different needs. And that obviously multi-tenant SaaS, as you all know, gives you the benefit of lower support costs, being able to roll out more innovation faster and so on. For our customers, it means that they have, if they go for the full platform, so human capital management, financial management, analytics, planning, they have all of that data in one place. Okay, all secured by a single security model. And because of all of that data is in one place, they can generate more insight than ever before. And final slide about Workday, then I'll talk about outbound product marketing. So I think as well, we've approached things very differently, and we focus on different things to our primary competitors. So we talk a lot, we focus a lot on customer satisfaction. We measure it. We have a minimum target of 95% customer satisfaction. That's measured through a survey and responses from those surveys. We all get a few shares every year if we get above 95%. Our software, it's not what's called shelfware. People don't just buy it and put it on the shelf and never implement it or spend years trying to implement it. They buy it, they implement quickly, they go live. So 70% are live, the other 30% in implementation. Another big thing about Workday is this great places to work. So we focus. We have a number of values, and the top value is look after your employees, because the philosophy is you look after your employees, then they'll look after your customers, and it is a great place to work. And we've been ranked the best place to work in the UK, I think, for our size of organisation, best place to work for women, best place to work for minorities, all these sorts of things. We rank in all of those lists. So that's Workday. And we have fantastic customers. I mean, we from disruptors like, if this wasn't being recorded, I might mention some other names, but I can't do that. So you know what I'm saying. You have these customers who won't let you mention their name, even though they're really interesting. So like a Netflix is a fantastic customer. Amazon, they're getting up to 1 million employees. To more established organisations like Rolls-Royce, Lloyds Banking Group. I'll tell you a story about Lloyds Banking Group. So I've just changing cars. So the finance on my old car is finishing. So I phoned up the finance company, and I was going through the rigmarole of closing that off. And the chap on the phone said, "Oh, I see that you work for Workday." I was like, "Oh, this is a bit weird." Yeah. And he said, "It's fantastic. it's made my working life so much better. So he worked for a part of Lloyd's banking group. And, in my previous companies, I'd never had that experience before. So in the way in which we engage our customers, the way in which we look after our customers is something from a product marketing perspective that we look to leverage. So outbound product marketing. So I was really interested yesterday by the Salesforce presentation and the people who were on stage, because they're in a very similar situation to me and my colleagues in Europe. So, and the whole hypothesis behind this is that if you're not in the HQ function, if you're not based in the HQ, wherever that may be, if you're in a different country, then your role as a product marketer is going to be significantly different to those people who are based at HQ. And that can be a challenge to make people understand why it's different and how it's different. So how are we organized at Workday from a product marketing perspective? So when I joined, there was no product marketing outside of North America. Now we have a small footprint here, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But we have, and I was counting, I was using Workday this morning to see how many people have we got in the product marketing function, and we have about 48, I think it was, when I looked at the report. And all but 4 of those 48 are based in North America. And the majority of those would be based in Pleasanton, which is in California, which is where our head office is. Although they have some remote workers as well, but based in the US. So we have, the great majority of our product marketers are based in the US, and we have four over here. So we have 2 in the UK, and we have 1 in France and 1 in Germany, and that's sort of the team that I recruited and built out. We are organised by, in the US, by functional area. So we have our HCM, Human Capital Management product marketers, and they are organised by what we call SKU, so products that we sell. So we would have what's called core HCM, recruiting, learning, time tracking, payroll, and each of those SKUs will have 1 or 2 product managers, depending upon product marketing managers, depending upon the scale of that business for us. And then over here, we have a broader remit. Okay, so they're very specialized in the US, whereas over here, we're broader. For instance, myself, we're all player coaches, so I'm HCM, so I try anyway, and cover all of the different SKUs that come underneath the HCM banner. We've tried different organizations. So we had initially, when I built up the team, we had a local team, local reporting lines, and we reported into the VP marketing for EMEA. That was then changed to, because we felt we were too detached from the corporate product marketing. They kind of forgot about us because we didn't report into them. So that was then changed. So we then reported into the corporate product marketing by functional product line. And that's where we are at the moment. And who knows, we may well change that again. So I'm interested to learn more from Salesforce in terms of how they are organized. And when we look at corporate product marketing, so I would like to sort of use the analogy as, they're laying the pipelines across Europe, across the world, if you like, and they're determining what flows through those pipelines, right? The water, if you like, that flows through their pipelines. They're pumping the assets, the messaging, the positioning, and so on, that circulates through those pipelines around the world. What we need, though, is we need someone local to know that those pipes are there, because again, before we had local product marketing, a lot of the assets and so on that was being produced out of corporate product marketing, the local markets didn't even really know about them. Okay, people are bombarded, aren't they, with information from, with emails, with, intranets, and they will just ignore it. It just becomes noise. So you need someone local who can kind of sift through all of those assets and communicate clearly what's going to be relevant locally. So from a sort of EMEA product marketing perspective, we need people who know that the pipe as it flows through Finland, for instance, you probably want to fit a sauna to that pipe. As it flows through France, can anyone guess what I'm going to say? National stereotypes. We need to fit a bidet, okay? Bless you. As we flow through the UK, couldn't really come up with anything special there. We just need to fit a tap. But it's really important that we have people locally, in my opinion, who can do that. And when I looked at, some of the presentations yesterday from some of our US presenters, I feel that if only they'd had a local product marketing person, it would have helped with their content a little bit to make it a little bit more relevant. Content was good, but for instance, when you're presenting to an audience in Europe, don't use a US company example that no one's ever heard of. Try and make it local, for instance, would be an example. EMEA product marketing, our role is to amplify those messages coming out of corporate, right? And choose the right ones to amplify across our region and within our countries. Now, and this was said in the Salesforce presentation yesterday. I think, there's only 4 of us over here, and I'll talk a little bit later about what we do, but we don't have capacity to be reinventing the wheel. No matter how beautiful that wheel may be when we've reinvented it, we just don't have the bandwidth. We can't do that. So what we need to do is we need to be taking what's coming out of our corporate product marketing function and either tweaking it if it needs a little bit of tweaking, or ideally influencing as early as possible as those assets are being created. Because we had this in the early days, you'd have what we call our product previews, which are like these very short demos, 2 minutes, they're on the website. They drive huge amount of MQLs for us. They'd come out of the US and they'd be like all US data, talking about it just wouldn't work here. So then if you have to redo the whole product preview, it can take months and cost a fortune. Whereas if you can influence that early, tweak it, see the script, say that's not going to work in Europe, that's not going to work here, could you change it please? Then that saves everyone a huge amount of time and money. And I think we've made great progress with that over here. And we use a tool called Workfront, which is a sort of a workflow management tool. So when we're creating a new asset out of corporate, they will now add in the EMEA product marketers as approvers, if you like, or reviewers at different stages in the process. So we know automatically what's going on. We get visibility at different stages as they're creating ideas for an asset, doing initial drafts. We get to have a look at it and say, oh, could you change that because we think it won't work? And that's had massive positive impact on our ability to just use those US assets as they are, because they're not US assets anymore, they're global assets. Now, having said that, sometimes you do have to invent the wheel, okay? And because we live in Europe, it's very diverse, is it not? It's not. Europe is not a country. Europe is made up of lots and lots of different countries, and they are very different. And if you want to be successful selling in these different countries, you need to talk about something that's relevant to them. Okay, and that's my role. I'm annoying. I'm saying, like Salesforce said, have you thought about EMEA? Have you thought about Europe? Have you thought about, that's not going to work in the UK. That's not going to work in France. And you can become like a broken record, but you just have to keep on doing it to make sure that the corporate function are aware. And frankly, they're very receptive to it. They just need reminding. Okay. Now, how do we identify what the key topics are in all these different countries? There's no way I can do that. I don't know what's going on in the 14 different countries. I don't know what the hot topics are. So what you need to find, this is my tactic, is you need to find that your canary in the mine, right? The early warning signal, someone who understands their market and who can warn you early that something's coming up that perhaps we should hang our coat on. I've got a few of these in Workday. They tend to be sales leaders. They're quite good at giving you a heads up because they know they're told by their salespeople the conversations that they're having with prospective customers, what the hot topics are. And these are typically the people who will ring you up and tell you, how to do your job, how you should do it better. This is what you should be talking about. It can be a little bit annoying, but you just swallow your pride and realize that actually they're providing you with valuable input. And let me give you some examples of some of the things that we've done locally, because we had to do them locally. So nothing to do with Brexit. I'm not talking about Brexit. So apart from my Irish passport, GDPR. Okay, this was a really good example. So in about 2017, the beginning of 2017, one of our Nordic sales leaders started saying, "Look, this is coming up. GDPR is coming up time and time again. This is an issue for our customers." And I have to admit, I hadn't really come across GDPR at that point. So we did some research into it. We went to some GDPR conferences, and we identified that actually, this is a big deal for organizations in Europe who are managing employee data. Okay, so for GDPR, the initial concern was around the consumer brands, right? Handling customer data. But we saw actually GDPR was going to have a massive impact on organizations and their management of their employee data. Because, a lot of organizations had lots of different systems. They didn't have a centralized control of that data. A lot of the time, they didn't even know where the employee data was. They couldn't really strictly control who had access to it. And this was potentially going to be a massive issue for these organizations. So the idea was, that we needed to start amplifying as an educational, that you need to think about this. Any size company, you need to think about GDPR, the implications on how you store employee data, who you give access to that data, and so on and so on. And we gave a vision of actually, you've got all these different systems. If you should consolidate those systems into a single system, which gives you control over that data, clear control over that data, and who can access that data. So we engaged with our product people as well, just to understand what are we doing around GDPR. And obviously they were doing everything. They were building functionality into the product already, but the organization hadn't realized this was actually going to be a key lever for driving new sales. We also spoke to our chief privacy officer, who was working on the contract side, because there's a contractual element to this. If you're working with a software as a service provider, there was going to be a contractual element over GDPR. And we were already doing all these things, of course we were. But what we weren't doing, we weren't joining all the dots and then going out to market and broadcasting a message and a narrative around GDPR. So, what did we do? And this was all done out of Europe. We built microsites, we did recorded webcasts, data sheets. We built out infographics. So there you can see why organizations would be worried about it. They could get fined up to 20 million euros or 4% of revenue. That tends to focus the mind. And an organization like, say, Velux, who do the windows in your loft conversion, Danish company, they specifically moved to Workday to help them address GDPR and make sure they could remain compliant. That's like a 20-odd country deployment. And we did events as well. That's me on the stage there. And that was, I think, in the walkie-talkie building at the top, which is a great venue if you need to go to a venue. And we filled it out. And frankly, it's very difficult, isn't it, to get people to come to events, or it can be very difficult. For GDPR events, we did a road show around the UK and Europe, and every event was chock-a-block full of people. So this was a very successful campaign that generated a lot of MQLs, stage ones, and ultimately a lot of new business for Workday. So there we provided, I would like to say, a lot of value to the organization as a whole. Other things that we have to do locally. So we, as I've mentioned, we have a number of very large established competitors who've got lots of very clever people working for them, and they are very clever in terms of the tactics that they use locally against Workday. And this is all changed now. This is a few years ago I'm talking about, but they would use different tactics depending upon the maturity of the market. Meaning, maturity, I mean in terms of adoption of cloud technologies. So again, we were getting the feedback from the canaries in the mine saying, look, this is a problem. We're hitting issues against this competitor. They're telling the customer this is the message they're going with, and it's really hurting us. And what the competitors were doing was they were taking our strength and very cleverly turning it into a weakness. So what did we do? We built out decks that the salespeople could use. We enabled them on the decks so we could combat this local tactic. We created 5 minutes, thank you. High five. We created recorded webinars. We ran events around this topic. And that's something, again, that you're not going to get out of your corporate function because they're not close enough to the market. We use them as well to help us create the assets, but we drove those campaigns. Here's another example of something that we do. So Workday Rising is our annual user conference. There's one in the US, one in Europe. We just had our European one in Milan, I think about 3 weeks ago. And originally, we just used to lift and shift the US one. Same presenters often, very similar content, and run that. And you'd have, just little things like you'd have baseball analogies in presentations and things like that. And now, fast forward 5 years, we have 3,000 people in Milan. We have track leads for the content are all European. We review every deck. We a couple of years ago we had lots of specific GDPR type content which they didn't have in the US. So we're shaping that conference to make it more locally relevant. Oh, and we had Michael McIntyre as our keynote speaker, and he was very, very funny, very expensive, I believe, but worth every penny. He had me laughing. Just things like keynote presentations. You can't cover the same content in the same time at a European event because you need to speak slowly. It's just little things like that that we can bring to the party, and I think the conference is just getting better and better. Okay, so what do we do? We're really tied in mainly to marketing at the moment with some sales interactions. We do a lot of event work, and that's physical and virtual events. We determine the content, the message, what are we going out with. We do sales enablement around sort of new releases, new updates. There's a big focus for us at the moment is in showcasing the innovation that we're going to market with. We enable partners. We work with a local analyst relations team. We would be the local product experts who would help with those local analyst engagements. The big analyst engagements like Gartner and so on are managed out of the US, of course. I'm running out of time. So how do we organize? I don't think we've found the best way to organize ourselves yet. And if any of you work in a similar US headquartered or remote product marketing function, hopefully you feel, it's not pain, but I'm still not sure what's the best way to do it. So if anyone wants to grab me and tell me if you've found the best way, please, I'd love to hear. And then finally, what do we look for when we're looking for an outbound product marketer? I think these are really difficult people to find, and we found them from very diverse backgrounds. They tend to be in our team, they're domain experts, right? Marketers second, so they know their area. Okay, so they're ex-accountants, finance technology specialists. They know their area. They really you have to be a self-starter. You don't get upset if you're forgotten about. Just bang on the door so that they don't forget about you. You're kind of on your own, so you've got to be a self-starter. We want to be disruptive. We don't want to do things in the same old way. We want to continue. Workday was born on a disruptive idea. We want to continue that. We don't want to just get into a cycle of doing the same old thing. Collaborative, influential, right? Because we're bringing people together who we have no managerial responsibility for. We can't tell people what to do. So we need to be influential people. We need to be credible internally. And also, we need to be confident to present. We do go around Europe presenting a lot. We need to be creative in terms of the content, and we need to be sensitive to our audience, both culturally and from a country perspective. I'm going to stop this on 007 because it will make me feel like James Bond. So there we go, finished on 007. So thank you.
Thank you, Richard. So I think we've got time for one question, which I am sneakily going to choose myself from Slido. And it's, how do you discover the differences between what works for Europe and what doesn't?
So it's from our personal experience. It's from those canaries in the mine. It's from testing out internally. So I'm building up a persona at the moment for a new type of influential buyer for us. It's a new job title, a new C-level job title. So I'm building out that persona. How am I doing that? I'm speaking to various sales leaders, various sort of influential people within Workday within Europe to get their feedback on what's going to work with that persona, what's not going to work. Then we'll build out the message house. We'll build out the story on a page, the SOAP. But yeah, it's leveraging. We can't do that on our own. We need to build a team that helps us and gives us the input to help understand the local market and what's going to work there. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you. Thanks.